marketing. So that's the first problem. The second problem is closely related. Pharmaceutical innovation is focusing on the diseases of rich people and neglecting diseases of poor people, like schistosomiasis, dengue, Chagas, malaria, and so on. We have a lot more good products for hair loss than we do for Chagas or schistosomiasis. And the reason is the same reason. Pharmaceutical companies are focused on making money, and you can make more money by catering to the diseases of wealthy people than by catering for diseases of the poor. If you have a very good medicine for a disease that only poor people have, then you have a very bad choice. Either you sell it at a low price that poor people can afford, in which case your profit margin is small, or you sell it at a very high price, in which case you have no customers. You can see here the consequence of that. There's the famous 10-90 gap, which is the gap that 10% of all pharmaceutical research expenditure is focused on diseases that account for 90% of the global burden of disease. And conversely, 90% of research money is focused on diseases that account for only 10% of the global burden of disease. So research today is not tracking what is really important to human beings. It's tracking what pharmaceutical companies can hope to be rewarded for, not surprisingly, of course. Here are some more examples. We had, over a 30-year period, 1,556 new medicines, of which only 18 were for tropical diseases and 3 for tuberculosis. So, very important diseases concentrated among the poor are not researched very much. A third problem is that there are two strong incentives to create Me Too drugs. Me Too drugs are medicines that are similar to existing drugs, but really not better or not much better. So this happens, for example, statins are one example. So there's the company, the first company that makes a statin, and then the other companies say, oh, that's a very profitable medicine, I want to have a statin as well. And so they create a similar medicine and try then to win market share from the first company. These medicines are sometimes, it's nice to have 2 or 3 medicines that do the same job, or even 6 medicines that do the same job, but the problem is it doesn't really add very much to the arsenal of medicines, and also these companies don't reduce the price, they still keep the price high, so the world is really not better off by having additional Me Too medicines. But these Me Too medicines have one disadvantage. They reduce the reward for the breakthrough drug. So the first really true innovator who made the first medicine in a therapeutic class will find very quickly that their profits are diminished by similar inventions made by other companies who are then competing very aggressively over market share. There's also a bias towards maintenance drugs. So medicines can be loosely divided into 3 groups. There are medicines that cure, that kick the disease out of your body, medicines that prevent, which don't let the disease into your body, like a vaccine, and then medicines that do neither, but make you feel better and function better. And those medicines, of course, get the most attention from the pharmaceutical industry because the most profitable patient is a patient who does not die and does not get well, because that patient buys the medicine again and again. That's a priority that we should not really want pharmaceutical companies to have. And it shows again that the rules under which we place pharmaceutical companies are not the best rules. There are substantial expenses with patenting and litigation. Pharmaceutical companies make a lot of money, but they also lose a lot of money, which they spend on patenting in many different countries, and especially on fighting lawsuits against each other and against generic companies in many, many different countries. So a lot of this wonderful profit goes to lawyers. And again, that is not what we should be happy about as customers and patients. There's also, especially in the United States, the problem of excessive marketing. We have about 1 marketing person for every 5 doctors going to doctors' offices and recommending medicines to prescribe, and also a lot of direct-to-consumer advertising, which tells patients to ask their doctor about this, that, or the other medicine. In the developing world, a similar problem, also due to the high difference between cost and price, is counterfeiting. So when a drug is sold at a very high price, let's say €2 for 1 pill, then it doesn't take long until a clever person says, I can make a pill that looks very similar, and I will sell that fake pill to people and make a lot of money. That happens a lot in developing countries, and often the pill is inert, there's nothing in it, or it's sometimes toxic, but often the pill is diluted. So you take a good pill, you divide it into 10 slices, and you repackage each of these 10 slices into 1 new pill. And that way people feel a little bit better. They think they're getting the real thing, but really they're getting too weak a dose, and that builds up drug resistance in patients. So that's a big problem, that resistance against medicine develops far too quickly because of counterfeiting. So we asked a whole bunch of health professionals, top healthcare professionals, about their views on these problems, and pretty much everybody agrees that these are very substantial problems and that some reform of the existing rules is urgently needed. And so we started in 2004 with this Health Impact Fund project. It was started by myself, by a few other researchers. Aidan Hollis, you already mentioned, from the University of Calgary, is our economist. We have a whole bunch of very distinguished medical people on board, Mel Spiegelberg, Harvey Rubin, and so on. Top-line people in medicine, some epidemiologists, and so on. So it's very much a collective effort. And we also have a few prominent supporters who are helping us in politically implementing the Health Impact Fund. A former Canadian Prime Minister, a Nobel Prize winner in economics, Chris Murray, chairman of NICE. He also had a Nobel Prize. And so these people are on our board of advisors and help us reach politicians and the media in order to make the fund more attractive and more well-known. So how does it work? The Health Impact Fund is a complement to the ordinary patent regime. A complement, that means that it is parallel. It doesn't change the normal system. It simply adds something to the normal system. And what it adds is the opportunity for pharmaceutical innovators to register any new medicine. You can register the medicine with the Health Impact Fund, and if you do that, you get a reward. The reward is that during the first 10 years that your medicine is on the market, you get payments every year that are proportional to the health impact of your medicine. The more health impact your medicine has, the more money you get. This money comes out of annual pools of money. We think of about $6 billion a year, 4 billion euros every year. And these pools are simply divided up every year in proportion to health impact. So if 20 medicines are registered with the Health Impact Fund, and if your medicine is one of these 20 and it accounts for 8% of the health impact of all the registered medicines, then you get 8% of the pool in that year. 8% of 6 billion, $480 million. The same thing repeats next year and the year after, and after 10 years, your reward is finished and you have received whatever you will receive for your research and development effort. Now, as often in life, when you get a nice thing, you have to give something up. And what you have to give up with a health impact fund is the opportunity to mark up the price. So you have to promise to sell the medicine everywhere in the world at cost. So instead of getting the patent reward, the markup, the increase in the price, instead of that, the health impact fund offers you this other reward based on the health impact of your medicine. Now, how do we know what the cost of production is? Well, one very simple way of finding that out is to ask the registrant to put the production of the medicine out for tender. So the registrant asks competing manufacturers how much they would charge to produce the drug. The cheapest reliable manufacturer gets the contract, sells the product to the innovator, and the innovator then sells the product on at the very same price. This is actually what today happens already. Most medicine is not produced by Bayer in Berlin or in Germany, or by a Spanish company somewhere in Spain. Most medicine is produced in India with APIs from China, so there's a lot of outsourcing of medicines already. So we are simply piggybacking off that system and asking the innovator to sell the medicine at the same price at which they buy it. Now, the Health Impact Fund is a kind of prize fund. And you may have heard of prizes or advanced market commitments already, but the Health Impact Fund is a very unique kind of prize. It works differently from ordinary prizes. First, it's different in that here, there's not one specific health problem or disease that is targeted. The Health Impact Fund targets all diseases. If you target one disease, there's always the danger of lobbying. So when we had the AMC, initially it was supposed to be for malaria, but then there was a lot of lobbying, and finally it became a AMC for pneumococcal disease. So the Health Impact Fund is very open. It says, you bring me whatever medicine you like, and the better it is, the more money you get from us. So we don't have to select diseases. Secondly, when you do a prize, you have to define a finish line. You have to say very precisely what counts as winning the prize. That's difficult to do before the research has been done. It's very hard to know what sort of a medicine is possible. The Health Impact Fund doesn't define a finish line. It just says, you bring us the medicine, and if it's better, you get more money. You get paid on the basis of health impact. Every medicine qualifies. Every medicine wins a prize, but a poor medicine wins much less money than a medicine that achieves a lot of impact. And thirdly, we also don't have to decide how much reward each innovator should get. The reward is simply decided by demand and supply of innovation. All the innovators are competing with each other for a limited amount of money that is in the annual pools. Over 10 years, you participate in $60 billion. $6 billion multiplied by 10 years. And how much money you get depends on how many other people are competing with you, how many other people are registering drugs. That may sound very scary, very uncertain, but really it's not that uncertain, because you know that when the rate of reward becomes low, that will deter innovators. People will no longer register medicines, they will stay away, and the reward rate will recover. Conversely, if the reward rate is very high, then innovators will say, that's a good opportunity, let's register a drug, and the reward rate will come down. That will reassure taxpayers that the pharmaceutical companies will not reap a huge windfall from the Health Impact Fund. So the rate of reward will always be reasonable because it is self-adjusting. If it falls too low, it will rise because registrations will stay away. If it rises too high, it will fall because registrations will accelerate, will come forward. Now, the Health Impact Fund avoids the 9 problems that I mentioned. It avoids the problem of access, of high prices, because every medicine on the Health Impact Fund is cheap. Every medicine is at cost or even below.